Welcome everyone. My name is Jeff St. Laurent and this is the Tuesday live show. And today's topic is developing the mindset to go after what you want in your business. I got a fun little story to share with you to start us off. And I want to go into something today I call decisive hustle. So you can start to understand the mindset of an entrepreneur. Today is not anything in terms of like specific recommendations like I usually do. It's more of a mindset piece. But mindset is such an important piece of what we do with the mind-body connection, because how we think influences how we feel. How we feel influences how we think. It's the mind-body connection where it's connected by breath or breathing. And so I want to talk about this very important aspect today. So before I do that, I do record all of these live shows. I put them on my university at sellingcoaching.com. So go ahead and check that out. I got a lot of great resources as I help coaches transition to a full-time business. If you want to start off right on the homepage of sellingcoaching.com, a great resource. It's an audio recording for you. It's audio training. And if you enter your name and email address, you'll instantly get access to that. That's also going to put you in my email community. You'll get weekly updates from me once a week on what's going on, what I'm doing, but more importantly, give you some great little tidbits of information to help keep us connected, to help keep you moving forward in your business and hold you accountable. I want to be in your face as much as you want me to be, and be there as your mentor coach, whether you've hired me or not. But with that being said, today I want to talk about something going after what we want. Like I said, this decisive hustle. But let me start off with a story, because I think stories are fantastic and they really help us highlight points that we can relate to in some different ways. So one of the things I want to share is this. Obviously, we had a holiday weekend, and in the U.S. at least. And with that being said, I spent some good time with family, and we were playing a card game. I don't know if you are card players out there, but there's a card game called Monte Carlo. Either way, you got a bunch of cards in your hands. I won't go into the super details, but you're trying to make specific cards in your hands go together in runs or sets or whatever. And so we're playing with 5 people. And the thing that's fun about the game is that, you know, obviously when a card turns up and it's your turn and it fits in your hand, you're excited because you get the card. But obviously when it's the other people's turn, let's say a card turns up, you know, 2 players from me, and they turn over a card that I want. In some card games, it stinks because I can't get that card, and it might be like the card that I need to go out and win that round. But in this game, it's fun because if you want that card, you could say, I'll buy it. And if no one else wants it, that's ahead of you in the turn order. Not only you get that card, but the cost of that card is taking another random card off the top of the deck, which may or may not fit into your hand, right? There's a cost to it, but you get the card that you want. So as we were playing the game, you know, I'm playing with my parents, my girlfriend, and my son. I was of particular interest of my son, because whenever I wanted a card, like I literally just leaned in, I grabbed the card, I'm like, I'll buy it. And I'm just acting as if no one else wants a card, needs a card, nor do I care if they want or need the card, because I want the card, right? And I'm willing to pay the cost of the random card of getting it. Now, of course, if someone else before the turn order wants it from me, they'd be like, no, I want that. And they take it from me, and I would just do whatever and, you know, throw a little fit. No, just kidding. But I would just deal with it and move on. Whereas someone like my son, he's 15, and sometimes, because he was unsure, he's still new at cards and stuff like that, but he was sitting back a little bit in his seat, and anytime he wanted a card, he wasn't sure sometimes. He like sit back and say, yeah, I'll buy it. Or even when he was sure, he's like, oh, I'll buy it. He was just sitting back in his seat, and he was waiting for other people to see before him to see if they wanted it or not. And then he would kind of just casually reach out. And it was kind of bothering me. Not that because it's a wrong way to play the card game. There's no wrong way to play, right? You could say, well, you're just being polite or courteous and waiting to see if anyone wants it. And if no one does, then you could take it, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. However, I believe that the way we do one thing, we do everything. In other words, if I went and saw your car and you showed me your car and gave me a ride in your car, is it a mess? Is there crap everywhere, or is it just dirty? I'm not saying cars don't ever get dirty. Or do I get in your car and is it nice and neat? Is it nice and clean? Do I get in the car and go, wow, it's a beautiful car? Not because it's a nice car or not. You know what I mean? Just because you keep a nice car. if you tend to keep your car, it doesn't mean your car's never dirty. Like, I'm pretty meticulous with my car, but I'm also pretty meticulous with my home and my grass and my lawn and stuff of mine. And I keep things neat and organized and clean. Way I want do one thing, I do everything. Just imagine if I went in your car and it was dirty and blah, blah, blah all the time. I'd probably go in your house and it'd probably be a little bit cluttered. It probably wouldn't be super neat and clean all the time. That's just the general tendency. So because I know that and I understand that about humans, when I saw him kind of sitting back, at least this is the entrepreneur in me, right? Part of me was like, oh man, I got to teach him to not be as timid and go after things. Because in this world, as we know, if you don't go after stuff, you don't typically get it. Doesn't mean you'll never get stuff. It just means if you sit back on your heels and you're not decisive, you don't hustle to go after it. That's this decisive hustle I'm going to refer to today a little bit more. Then you miss opportunities because you're indecisive. You're overthinking things. You're not sure of what you want. You're not sure of all the details. And there's a million other things that goes into our head. Now, I'm extracting all of this from a simple card game, but this is just the way I think. And of course, as I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, this is my Tuesday live show. I'm going to talk about this because this is so important for you as entrepreneurs. And why that's important here is because now, let's forget about the card game for a second, right? We're an entrepreneur. And this is not a spectator sport. This isn't something you just watch and hope and pray and that things happen. Or, you try and then that doesn't work, so you move on. In other words, as a quick example of that, like with a lot of my clients when I'm working with them in my groups and my one-on-one, when they're mentoring with me, when they reach out to somebody because they want to set up a speaking engagement or they want to ask, maybe for some help on setting something up or doing something. And then they do that once, they'll send the email, they'll send a connection, they'll call and leave a voicemail, and they don't hear back from that person. And then they're like, well, I just haven't heard back from them yet. And I'm like, okay, well, how long's it been? They're like, oh, I don't know, a week or 2 weeks. I'm like, all right, we'll reach out again. They're like, oh, okay. And then, a time goes by, and then I'm like, did they get back to you? They're like, no. I'm like, well, how badly do you want to talk to this person, ask them for help, or ask them what you want to ask them, or connect with them? They're like, well, I think it would be good. I'm like, well, reach out again. Like, go after it. Reach out. Don't go get the card. Lean into this. And that's the way I want you to play this game. And it's decisive hustle, because my clients, myself, people that have created results, they go after things. When I say they don't take no for an answer, they're not pushy and ignore people's requests if they say no. But just because someone doesn't get back to them doesn't mean they're not interested. It just means that you're the last thing on their radar. They got a billion things going on, and you need to follow up with them again. And maybe you'll annoy them. Maybe you won't. Maybe it's too much. Maybe it's not enough. I don't know. But don't give up. We've got to go after this. In this decisive hustle I'm talking about, I think that's my new term that I've made up this morning. I was writing my email to everybody about the show, and that's the way I want you to play this game, right? You make up stuff as you go along, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, right? But this decisive hustle I'm referring to today is the first part, decisive. This business we're doing is all about decisiveness. And there's too many times, how about this? The majority of the time, you're not going to know the right answer. You're not going to know exactly what will happen or what could happen or the best approach on how to go about doing something or all the details and the manner with which you'd like to most of the time. That's just the reality of it. It is too unpredictable, right? And even as I work with the people that have hired me and things like that, like I can take some of that out of the mix, some of that uncertainty out because I've been there and done that. I'm not going to say I've been through every experience, but also if there's an experience I haven't had, I've had enough experience and expertise to confidently help you navigate the situation with a lot more confidence than you would, let's say, by yourself, right? But even when I'm working with my clients, I could take some of the uncertainty out, from those experiences, et cetera, and as they start to move forward, have someone that can support them along the way who has, in other words, borrow some of my confidence along the way. But even with that, there's still going to be this space of like, I don't know what's going to go on. And the decisiveness starts to come by, first off, it's trust. Trust and decisiveness go hand in hand. if you, and it's a self-trust. This isn't trusting anybody else. You could say, well, I don't know. I don't trust this person to be honest with me, or I don't trust this situation, blah, blah, blah. It's not about that. I'm not saying those are invalid thoughts completely. I'm saying, however, when you trust yourself, when you have this self-trust, you go after things with an uninhibited intensity. That's the way I'll say it. It's an uninhibited intensity. It's almost a level of naivete and ignorance. And I'll be honest, like I'll admit I've been naive in my life on certain things, even in my business. But I've also found that naivete or inexperience is a good thing because you approach things with less fear because you don't know what can happen. Now, that's not good in every aspect of life. However, with entrepreneurship, sometimes there's a certain level of naivety. There's a certain level of, like, even sometimes with my clients, I might leave a few things out when I share like what they're about to do because I've been there on certain situations and I know what could happen, but I also don't want that to predict what will happen. And sometimes when you know what can happen, it's not a scary like life or death thing, right? It's just, maybe an undesired result or, and sometimes that naivete or inexperience that's coupled with that, or naivete that's birthed through inexperience or created from that is healthy because it's less inhibited for us. It allows us to move forward quicker and more decisively and more freely when we don't have those fears. And that's what I want for you is to be able to develop that decisive hustleness. So the first part, the decisiveness, comes from that self-trust I'm just talking about there. And that's something that I want you to start to become more aware of. This is the mindset piece that I'm pulling this all together with today's topic is it's the mindfulness of your mindset, the consciousness of your mindset, just to begin to understand where those inhibitions, that indecisiveness, if you're having some in a situation's coming from. And if it's lack of details, I don't know what's going to happen, or I'm afraid this is going to happen, or I'm afraid this isn't going to happen, or any multitude of those situations, that's where I want you to go back to, like, how do I trust the situation more? How do I find a space where I can release those unknowns and shift my focus on what I want and the simple steps on at least what I know about how to go about and do that. And then just allow whatever's to be created, whether that's the desirable or a not desirable result. And not look at it as good or bad, but look at it as this is now my result. Because very often times when we take action, even if we don't get a great result, I found early on and even now in my business, been doing this since 2004, is that we often get fuel and excitement and self-worth and learn when we do things, even when we get an undesirable result. In some of my groups, or in a group I'm doing right now, we're helping them create a signature program, and I could give them all the details up front and every little thing, and then they would, an hour later, they'd just be like, there's no way I'm going to do this. There's just no way, especially in the time frames that I would like them to do it in. So I break it down and I just say, like, let's just start off with this, and let's do this, and let's do this by a certain time frame, and let's just worry about what we need to worry about in this thing to break it down and make it easy. But there's a certain level of trust that I start to see with everybody, and I start to observe it first to see, like, I'll just throw it out there and go, hey, here's what we want to do. A little bit broader, bigger picture without minus all the gruesome details, as I'll say, right? That would overwhelm somebody, and just see how people react and respond. And I'm like, all right, let's do this. And then that's where we start to develop that awareness of that trust. But I want you to start to become aware of that and start to work on yourself to coach that trust, which then lends itself to decisiveness, right? So what's stopping me in this situation? What are the logistics of it? And then pulling away from that, what if I trusted myself? What would that look like? How would that feel? What if I released some of these unknowns, uncertainties, and what if I just focused on the next few action steps to move forward? Because when I do that, I see a little bit further through the fog, and now I'm feeling better because I'm actually moving forward. I'm doing some things, albeit sometimes it's blind faith, sometimes it's blind trust, but that's a skill set that I'm bringing to the table today that I want you to start to learn. That's the decisiveness. Now, to the decisive hustle, to pull this together, is the hustle is obviously now going after that. That's the leaning in. That's like in the card game of the story I shared at the beginning, it's complete disregard for whatever anyone else wants. As I said, I leaned in, like, I didn't care if anyone else wanted it. If they wanted it, they would tell me and I would give it back to them. You know what I mean? I'm not saying in this business, do this with total disregard for other people's wants and needs. Obviously, I have to say that though, because I don't want to have any assumptions on your part. But with that being said, the decisive hustle is going after things, leaning in, taking what you want, going after what you want. Obviously, being respectful in that process, listening, observing in conversations. Yet the hustle's got to be, it's the consistency over time that you hear me talk about all the time, you know, and in knowing what's happening in a given day and executing and being done. Executing and being done. That's the hustle involved, right? I decide, I execute, I'm done, I move on. And I don't dwell. I don't sit too long. There's no still water. If there's still water, I've got to assess, why am I in my office? If there's nothing going on, if I'm just putzing around, if I'm just overthinking things, then why am I in my office? I'm not saying that there's never any planning or still time to think things through, etc. Yet, what I'm saying is when it comes time to pull the trigger, so to speak, that in this word I'll say it's decide, right? So it's at what point am I deciding and moving forward? So you can have whatever time you want to think about things, etc. I'm not saying don't think about anything, just blindly leap into any and all decisions. I am saying, though, find the blend or give yourself some deadlines of when I'm going to move forward with this. With the group I'm working with and other groups that I've worked with, one of the reasons I'll set deadlines with them is I'm trying to give them some accountability for a deadline, and then, hey, if this what I'm giving you doesn't work, you tell me what works for yourself. But I always say, don't push things out too far, because the further you push things out, you lose the sense of urgency. And oftentimes in our business, unlike a job, is we don't have any sense of urgency. The urgency is going to come from us until we start creating situations with other people and people hiring us and working with us or getting back to us that creates deadlines and urgency. In a job, there's some urgencies because stuff needs to get done, or you're on the chopping block, or you're going to be noticed. So you've got to do things. But here in our business, there's no sense of urgency. It's a self-created urgency, which is a hard thing. I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, it's an easy thing. I struggle with sometimes too. I've been doing this for a very long time. The difference is I found it doesn't mean that goes away and you're just good at it. It just means that you know how to manage yourself better. You understand how you work in different situations much better, so you can get through those situations and not waste as much time. And if I'm not doing it, like if there's still waters in my business and I question, why am I in my office right now? And this way, if I'm choosing to be there, I'm there for a certain reason and I'm accepting it. Otherwise, I'm getting out and I'm relaxing, doing something else, whether it's task related in my personal life or fun related or whatever. So it's how do we become productive in the space that we're in? It's having that decisive hustle. It's having the decisiveness through that trust. And leaning in, going after what you want. But hopefully today was helpful in the sense that you got a space for, it's not just me saying, oh, just lean in and go after what you want, take the card, metaphorically speaking. It's how do we start doing that? How do we develop that mindset through that self-trust, through that heightened sense of awareness? And it's also through those deadlines, start to hold us self-accountable. So hopefully this has been helpful for you. For those of you that are watching still, I would love for you to throw something in the comments, even if it's just a quick hello, what's up, Jeff? If it's a question, if it's a takeaway, why this was helpful for you, anything. This way I know who's there, because otherwise I just see a little number of people that are there or not. I'd love to see who's showing up live. Like I said, if you missed this recording, obviously the recording will be up soon in my university. Also, if you're in a position where you're sensing that you don't have this decisive hustle, or you definitely require some assistance with this, and you're really starting to just pause too much, and you want to borrow some of that confidence from me, not only to help you with accountability and create some deadlines, but help you with all the specific structures and guide you, consider working with me as your mentor coach. If that's something you're considering or open to and you feel the timing's right, head to sellingcoaching.com, fill out the form at the bottom of the work with me page. I'll follow up with you. I'm going to give you a call. We'll create a relaxed conversation. And if everything works out, we'll see where we can go from there.